to me! Saul burst into tears and pummeled his chariot with his fists. The messenger stifled a yawn. Saul had been going on like this for 3 hours now, ever since he heard about Samuel's death. Then suddenly, he snapped out of it. Right, time to cheer myself up. I know, I'll book a posh restaurant and we'll hold a huge funeral banquet and I'll invite all my friends and relations and... Wait a minute, Jonathan, where's David? He's in hiding, Dad, because you're trying to kill him. I am not trying to kill him. I love him. He's like a son to me. Well, obviously not as much like a son to me as you are, because you are my son, but like a sort of a nearly son. And I want him at my banquet. It'll spoil the whole thing if he's not there. So go and find him and tell him he's got to come. And remember, explain to him that I don't want to kill him. Understand? I do not want to kill him. I promise. David was climbing out of his bedroom window while his wife was yanking at his leg, trying to drag him back in again. "Oh, Dave," she begged, "let me come with you." "It breaks my heart to leave you, Mish," said David, trying to prise her fingers apart. "But it's too dangerous. Since Samuel died, Saul will do anything he can to get me out of the way." "That's not true," interrupted Jonathan. "He loves you. He told me." "Well, he's bound to say that, isn't he?" said David. "He's hardly likely to let on that he's going to chop your best friend into bite-sized nuggets. Anyway, he's got this crazy idea that I want to be king." "You do want to be king," said Michelle. "No, I don't," said David. "Not much. Anyway, even if I did, Saul has been chosen by the God of the Israelites, and as far as I'm concerned, that's that. And would you please stop pulling at my leg, Michelle?" "I'll tell you what," said Jonathan. "We'll set up a little test. If I'm right, you stay, and if I'm wrong..." "If you're wrong," said David, "I head for the hills. And Michelle, would you mind not stretching my sock, please?" The food just kept on coming. Avocado, aubergine, beef, chicken, fish, lentils. It was the swankiest do Saul's friends and relations had ever been to. "Ooh," said a friend, "pass me that interesting-looking eggy one." "Ah," said a relation, "you've got to have a go on this mushy red one. It's delish." Everyone was having a whale of a time, except Saul. He'd got this one single solitary chickpea on his plate, which he kept poking at grumpily, and occasionally looking up at the empty chair where David was supposed to be sitting, only wasn't. "Pudding is served," announced the head waiter, and everyone dribbled at the thought of the luscious scrum they were about to shovel down their throats. "No, it isn't," snapped Saul. "Put it away. The banquet's over. Go and get your hats and coats." Immediately, everybody stood up. When Saul was in this kind of mood, you didn't argue. "Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute," he snapped. "There will be another banquet tomorrow night, same time, same place, and you're all invited." "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, sir," said a rather stupid captain, "only I've got my Tai Chi class tomorrow night. It's ever so interesting. You see, you actually have to turn on your centre, so you're actually sort of spinning on your own axis. But what's really interesting about it is that there's a long form and a short form." Saul started to growl. "And you'd love it, Your Majesty, because although it's a form of martial art, you have to be really, really gentle with your opponent." Saul grabbed him by the lapels. "I said there will be another banquet tomorrow night, same time, same place, and you're all invited. Get it?" "Oh, looks like I'll have to give the old Tai Chi a miss then, doesn't it, Your Majesty?" "Pity." So next night there was another big do. More avocado, more aubergine, more beef, more chicken. Only by this time, Saul's friends and relations were getting a bit sick of posh food. They felt very burpy, a bit queasy, and some of them had to leave the room every 15 minutes. And once again, David's chair was empty, and once again, Saul was poking a solitary chickpea round his plate. "Pudding is served," announced the head waiter. "No, no, please, not another banquet tomorrow night." But Saul didn't say a word. The friends and relations took a mouthful of their pudding. Bang! Saul brought his fist down so hard he smashed his plate and squashed his chickpea. "All right, where is he? You all know, don't you? You're all laughing at me." "Calm down, Dad," said Jonathan. "He didn't come because he's got a gig tonight." "But he's supposed to be here." I know, it's my fault, really. He asked me specially. He said he didn't want to let down the band. And you said yes, did you? Even though you knew I wanted him here. You dirty little cheapskate. You worthless trickster. You no-good, double-crossing, mutinous, treacherous, horrible, communist, disgusting... The eyes of Saul's friends and relations glazed over. It looked as though they were in for a long night. I wouldn't mind if you were just a traitor, but you're a moron too, aren't you? Don't you realise how much that dirty toe-rag wants my throne? Do you think you'll ever be king as long as he's alive? Or hasn't that thought penetrated your skull, thicko? Calm down, Dad, said Jonathan. Thunk! One of Saul's spears drove straight into the glass and smashed it all about an inch above Jonathan's head. Now listen to me. I want you to get David for me, and when you've got him, I want you to bring him to me dead. Do you understand? I want David dead. Then he grabbed the stupid captain by the lapels. And you keep an eye on my son. If David gets away, it's down to you. Get it? Oh, well, said Jonathan. If I'm going to have to kill him, I'd better get in some target practice, hadn't I? He drove out to the firing range at the edge of the city with the stupid captain trotting along behind him. Lend me your arrows, said Jonathan, and he loaded up his bow. Poof! The first arrow buried itself deep in a bunker 100 metres away. Oh, very good, sir, said the captain. Whoosh! Went the second arrow and split the first. Oh, even better, sir, applauded the captain. Whoosh! The third arrow went straight up in the air, turned right, and disappeared in the long grass. Oh, not quite so good, that one, was it, sir? Go and get it, ordered Jonathan. Certainly, sir. Did you see which sort of way it actually went? Yes, said Jonathan, pointing in totally the wrong direction. Over there. Oh, really, sir? I thought it went over here-ish. Go and get it, ordered Jonathan. Certainly, sir. Right away, sir. Off I toddled, sir, and off he bounced like a young puppy. Hidden deep in a bunker, David watched with a smile on his face. Jonathan's little plan seemed to be working out okay, but what would his message be? 3 minutes later, the stupid captain was back. I'm terribly sorry, sir. I don't seem to be able to find it anywhere. I know, said Jonathan. I was wrong. You were right. I beg your pardon, said the captain. I was wrong. You were right, yelled Jonathan. Inside his bunker, David pricked up his ears. What was Jonathan trying to tell him? Well, where do you think I should look, sir? Asked the captain, who by now was totally confused. As far away as possible, mumbled Jonathan. I'm sorry? Go as far away as possible! Into the caves, up in the mountains! Just go as quickly as you can! David chuckled to himself. Jonathan's little plan had told him what he knew already. You'd better get out of here sharpish. Are you sure it went that far? Asked the captain. Just go! Bawled Jonathan. And with a sigh, the captain headed for the hills. 2 months later, he was back. I couldn't find my arrow anywhere, he said. But nobody paid him any attention. They were too busy polishing their chariots and sharpening their spears. There's a war on, explained Jonathan. There are Philistines everywhere. Well, I didn't see any, said the stupid captain. David seems to have them pretty much under control up in the hills. What? Roared Saul. Where is he? Over towards Ein-Gedi, Your Majesty, said the captain, with his little gang. But he said he hadn't seen my arrow anywhere. Saul leapt up onto the leading chariot. To Ein-Gedi, he roared. But what about the Philistines, said Jonathan. You keep them busy, I'll polish them off later, said his father. David's my #1 priority. He's a cold-blooded, king-killing maniac. If I don't get him, he'll stick a knife in my back. Follow me! Come on, man! What are you waiting for? David was feeling happier than he'd been for ages. He'd got the king off his back. He'd got a loyal little guerrilla band. Every time he was bored, they could roar down to the valley and burn a few Philistine farms. He gave his beautiful new girlfriend a nibble on his kebab and smiled. What a life. Movement below, sir, called the lookout. Snaking across the valley was was a long dust cloud, an army on the march coming in this direction. They were cornered. "Get into the caves and lie low," ordered David. Swiftly and silently, the guerrilla band picked up their possessions and disappeared. Nearer and nearer came the Israelite army. They tiptoed up the mountain path, with Saul at their head, grinning with glee at the thought of the slaughter he was about to unleash. Ahead of him was a deep cave. "Now!" he hissed, and his soldiers burst in with swords drawn. Drip, drip, drip. No David, no guerrilla army, just the drip, drip, drip of water falling from the roof. "The next valley!" hissed Saul. "He must be in the next valley!" And his army flooded out again. Drip, drip, drip. You know how sometimes falling water can make you want to go? Well, that's exactly what happened to Saul. "I won't be a minute," he called. "I've just got a bit of business to attend to." And as 1,000 footsteps echoed down the valley, Saul went behind a big rock. David crept out of his hiding place, drew his knife, and moved quietly forwards. His guerrillas watched in silence. Was he really going to kill the king? He was right behind Saul now, his knife an inch from the king's shoulder blades. Go on, mouthed the guerrillas. David turned to them and smiled. When Saul had finished, he raced down the track till he'd overtaken his men and was marching at their head again. Was that a giggle he heard behind him? No, it couldn't have been. No one would dare snigger at the king. It flipping was. He spun round. His entire army was doubled up with laughter. "All right, what's so fantastically humorous?" demanded Saul. "It's your bottom, sir," explained the captain. "It's a bit sort of visible. Someone's cut a square out of your cloak." "I'm sorry. It is rather humorous." "Saul!" High above them, a figure was calling from the cliff edge. In one hand, he held a knife, in the other, a square of cloth. "You say, I want to stick a knife in your back. Didn't I just have the perfect opportunity? You are the chosen king of the Israelites. I swear I will never harm a single hair on your head. Now go back and fight the Philistines. They're the real enemy." Slowly and thoughtfully, the Israelite army marched back in the direction they'd come from. And as for Saul, he sulked and sulked all the way home.